If I take you to the most beautiful place in the world, and you stand there with your eyes shut and say, "So what? I don't see what the big deal is. My basement has more scenery," then you're just not the smartest person out there. And in a nutshell, well, this is the vibe I get watching this video.
The main reason I'm not a Muslim is because there aren't any good reasons to think Islam is true.
Oh, you think there's no good reasons, huh? Well, let me show you some. No, brother, please, be nice. Don't be so harsh on them.
So if you want me to speak a bit more calmly, I'm going to speak like a Quaker from now on. Good day, sir. Go ahead.
It is a book like no other book, a speech like no other speech, and this can be shown in so many ways.
Just because a book is unlike any other does not mean it is divinely inspired. The works of William Shakespeare are unique. There's nothing else like them. But that doesn't mean they're divine.
Oi, Bieber! Just because there's a guy like no other does not mean he is divine. Elon Musk is unique. There's nobody else like him. That doesn't mean he's divine. Oh, you don't like my reductive analysis and extremely crude take of a much more elaborate subject matter? Well, maybe you can avoid doing that with Islam, and you might approach it with some integrity.
The Quran has changed. As scholars note, there are manuscript variations in it.
Look, man, we're talking about the Quran here, not the Bible. I know that you will defend the Bible with all sorts of excuses, no matter how much it's changed, but you won't apply anywhere near the same generous standards to the Quran. I get it, man. The feeling of putting your heart and soul into supporting something, dedicating hours upon hours of your life, losing your mental and emotional sanity for this, only to find out it was all a facade, a sham, a fragile glass ceiling, behind which lies are hidden. Whoa. I'm sorry, it's been a tough few weeks. Where were we again?
The Quran has changed. As scholars note, there are manuscript variations in it. Shabir Ali is a well-known Muslim apologist and confirms this fact.
In North Africa, there is a slightly different text that is based on a slightly different reading, mostly corresponding to what we read in the rest of the world, but with some slight variations that do not affect anything that Muslims believe.
Oh man, okay, look. Let me explain this in a way everyone can understand.
Harry Potter. Brother,
You may remember the first book and movie, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Wait, what? Is it Sorcerer's Stone or Philosopher's Stone? Well, we find out that the author decided to write one book for a British audience and another for an American audience, with the plot being the same but certain phrases and words were catered to the local audience. For example, this sweater, for some reason, is called a jumper in British English. Now, the author signed off on the two versions. You cannot make the claim that one version is corrupted since the author has given the green light for both texts. The Quran was revealed in 7 ahruf, or dialects, all authenticated by the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ himself. Any quote-unquote versions of the Quran have authenticated chains of memorizers going back to Prophet Muhammad, with the differences being even less than the Harry Potter example I gave earlier.
This student studied from my sheikh, who studied from another sheikh, who studied from another sheikh, all the way back for 1,400 years. And if you look here towards the end of the chain, you can see An Abi Hurairah, the great companion of the Prophet ﷺ, who got his ijazah from the great companion Ubay ibn Ka'b, who got his ijazah from none other than Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, who got his ijazah from Jibreel alayhi salam, who got his ijazah from Allah himself Jalla Jalaluhu.
Nowhere has Shabir Ali mentioned that the Quran has been changed or corrupted the way you are implying. Now imagine if J.K. Rowling, the author, wrote The Sorcerer's Stone, and then without her knowledge, some American decides to Americanize the book. This American then begins adding entire subplots into the story that were never in the original. Entire interactions, battle scenes, and Quidditch matches are added that never took place in the original story. That is corruption, my friend. And then imagine that the original Sorcerer's Stone was just lost in time. The corrupted American versions are all we can rely on to determine J.K. Rowling's views. And that is still a far better scenario than what we have for the Bible. So let's not delude ourselves by equating the Bible's corruption with the Quran's preservation.
What we find is that the message is 100% consistent with absolutely no contradictions.
Well, the Skeptics' annotated Quran has a fair number of alleged contradictions. Now, that author also does the same thing for the Bible.
Oh my God, someone found contradictions in the Quran! Okay. Deep breaths. I'm gonna go in. Okay, relax.
You don't worry, sir. Don't panic! Okay, sir. Calm down! Take a deep breath, calm down!
Alright. Let's see what this one has to say. He was drowned, he was saved.
Look, no disrespect to any of these idiots.
Okay, see, when he brought this guy up, I thought this was some skilled Orientalist PhD guy who dedicated his life to studying religion. In reality, though, he's just some loser from the Neckbeard Brigade. I mean, look at just how stupid this is. The top 3 verses indicate that Pharaoh, aka Pharaoh, drowned. The bottom verse says, "Today we will preserve your corpse." Something we can see today in the Grand Egyptian Museum in Cairo. But this neckbeard genius here cannot understand that body here is referring to corpse since he doesn't know Arabic and relies on Marmaduke Picketall's translation. At least you would have thought that until you realize he's actually an even bigger idiot than that, because his annotations clearly mention here that he knew the verse is referring to the dead body. So then why the hell are you calling it a contradiction over here? Does the hamster not run very fast in that skeptical head of yours? To be honest, I checked out the rest of these claims too, and they were equally pathetic, if not worse. It's a waste of any sane individual's brain cells, and I recommend anyone to use their brain for more productive enterprises. This is why you read the annotations of experts and not intellectual peasants.
Intellectual peasants, that's usually my go-to insult for these individuals.
Why the hell are you, as a Catholic, throwing your own Bible under the bus?
Now, that author also does the same thing for the Bible, but Christians have a reply to those alleged contradictions that Muslims do not have. Christians believe the Bible's human authors were true authors. So many skeptical arguments against the Bible can be explained by God allowing the human authors to do things like use ancient literary conventions, inexact summaries or genealogies, anthropomorphic language, or ancient scientific presuppositions the divine author had no need to correct.
Okay, so you admit the Bible has scientific, historical, and logical errors. Good to know.
So this explanation for Bible difficulties doesn't work for the many difficulties in the Quran, like its claim that semen comes from between the backbone and the ribs rather than the testicles.
Here is a 16-year-old revert to Islam debunking this nonsense of an argument.
Even if there were no contradictions in the Quran at all, it was completely void of contradictions, that would not prove it was divine. You could write a fictional story that has absolutely no contradictions, but that wouldn't prove that the story is divinely inspired.
Sure, but if it did have contradictions, it would fail to be from an all-knowing creator. So far, your response to my man's point of the Quran having no contradictions have been, let's look at Neckbeard Brigade over there, who can't even read basic English, let alone Arabic. Let me use a repeatedly washed-up, debunked argument without looking at any counter-arguments that would put this to bed. And let me try to nullify this point altogether, because I know that my current theology justifies my divine scripture having contradictions, because it's authored by humans.
Today, millions of people around the world have the Quran stored in memory. If all books were to just disappear, the only one that would be back in a day is the Quran.
So what? There are many beliefs that are passed down in written and unwritten forms.
अबे क्या जाहिल आदमी है ये?
यार बड़े ही कोई मेरे जाहिलों से पाला पड़ गया यार मेरा क्या जाहिलों से पाला पड़ गया.
There is no book in history that has been memorized so meticulously, cover to cover, word by word, letter by letter, with such frequency, longevity, and quantity as the Quran. Pull any Muslim aside from anywhere in the world, and they will know someone personally who has memorized the entirety of the Quran.
ونحشرهم يوم القيامة على وجوههم عميا وبكما وصما.
Okay, Zakaria, 300, page 300.
ولقد صرفنا في هذا القرآن للناس من كل مثل.
Next page.
استقبل
يهدي به الله
استقبل
يا أهل الكتاب
استقبل
من الذين قالوا
استقبل
بما نقضهم
استقبل
لقد أخذ الله
استقبل
يا أيها الذين
استقبل
كفروا
دو صفحه بعد
فإنوا على
دو صفحه بعد
وإذا ناديتم
دو صفحه بعد
حسبوا ألا تكون
5 صفحه بعد
وإذا قيل لهم تعالوا.
This is not some rare specialized feat. There are millions of them who exist around the world. You don't have anything close to that in the Christian tradition, let alone any other religious tradition.
You don't have to read it to me. I know your whole Bible upside down.
Even if this were only true of the Quran,
It is.
being unique is a common property of things in the natural world. That doesn't mean they're divine.
Oh, yes, excellent point. I mean, just look at you. You've been saying one unique thing after another.
Also, the Bible is easier to learn than the Quran. Because Christians never say the Bible can only be truly understood in one language.
Right! Because Christians say the Bible can never be truly understood at all. God and the Trinity is all a big mystery. You don't even have a scripture in the original language of Jesus for you to fully understand it. You have to rely on second-hand Greek translations authored by the most authentic sources of all, anonymous. No, not that one. Even though we probably know more about this one than the authors of the gospel. Now, to be fair to the Christian audience, it's not like some guy in his basement decided to BS a bunch of events and now we have the gospels. If you do a basic level of research, you'll realize that there is some decent information to at least speculate how the current Bible connects with the originals. However, at the end of the day, your authors are still anonymous, and chains back to the disciples are non-existent. From the Muslim point of view, it is not good enough. You can't tell what all may have been added in or taken out to suit someone's theological agenda, and you have no ground to stand on against the Quran. So, oh wise Christian apologist, anything more you have to teach us?
Next, the video tries to prove that Muhammad was a genuine prophet.
Boy, I really hope he doesn't bring up an illogical and subjective criteria in measuring prophethood.
Now, that's going to be difficult because the Quran says Muhammad did not perform any miracles.
What is this? Is this a joke?
Jesus Christ validated his message with miracles.
What the hell is that?
Have you not heard of that?
I do know exactly what that is, but that's got nothing to do with this discussion.
You're asking me what?
You're using, do you know what you're doing? Sorry, I'm a Quaker.
Oh man, Muhammad didn't perform miracles. Jesus did. Hallelujah! Let's all follow Jesus. Newsflash for you, buddy. Krishna performed miracles. He rose a mountain up by 6 feet. Guru Nanak performed miracles. He stopped a boulder with his bare hands. Joseph Smith performed miracles. He healed a guy with cholera. Heck, go anywhere in rural Pakistan and you'll hear how the local Pir Baba struck the ground and provided endless water for the villagers. These claims all have equal amounts of relevant evidence for us today. None! From a neutral standpoint, which is what you claim to be representing in your video, claiming someone performed an unverifiable miracle thousands of years ago is a ridiculously bad argument in determining who a true prophet is. He then talks very inaccurately about the splitting of the moon, but it's a waste of time for me to argue over it because at the end of the day, that miracle was meant for the disbelievers at the time. I believe in it, but it's not like I had little faith and then I heard the miracle of the moon splitting and all of a sudden decided Islam is the truth. When I'm preaching Islam, I don't go walking on the streets saying, "Hey guys, hey, guess what? My prophet split the moon. Become Muslim." I have to make a more rational argument. It seems like you guys don't have that in your arsenal, so you're stuck with Jesus rose from the dead.
Do we have other reasons, though, to think Muhammad was a genuine prophet?
His life is so well documented because of the impact he had on his people. We know things like how he used to eat and even the position he used to sleep. It wouldn't be far from accurate to say that we know more about him than any other historical figure.
If you think about that claim for more than 5 seconds, you can see it's not true.
So apparently, even though we have a well-established oral chain of transmission giving us intimate details of Prophet Muhammad's life, unlike anything even close to what we have for Jesus, I guess that isn't good enough. But look, rather than dismiss our boy here, maybe the man's done his research. Maybe he's got something which can shake the entire foundations of our understanding of Prophet Muhammad.
The fact that there are books arguing that Muhammad never existed shows we have less information about him than many other historical figures who no one doubts.
Okay, look. A guy wrote a book saying the moon landing didn't happen. That doesn't mean there is any credibility to that claim. If a clown of humanity, the founder of Jihad Watch, writes an unacademic, non-peer-reviewed book, that doesn't mean we now doubt the existence of the most influential figure in human history. You don't just plaster a nutcase's book on your screen and call it evidence. I don't know why you have a habit of turning hacks into authorities.
You're an idiot!
I mean, what are your brain cells going to conjure up next? Oh well, there goes Australia. Such a shame, really did like visiting it. Oh my god, what's going on here?
We have sufficient evidence to believe that Jesus Christ existed and that he made radical divine claims about himself and that his followers claimed to have seen him alive after his crucifixion. And this evidence is far better than the evidence we have from Muhammad, because it at least comes from within the lifetime of Jesus' followers. The same cannot be said of the sources from Muhammad that sometimes come centuries later.
Hey, you know, I'm not really a fan of the color scheme going on here. I don't really see beauty in this at all. You know, blue and green is just kind of overrated. My basement, however, oh my god, look at that beautiful, vomit-inducing gold on the wall there. Oh man, they just don't make it like they used to anymore. You don't have anything from the life of Jesus. You have the Bible, but no manuscripts for at least 200 to 300 years after Jesus. You got a non-Christian historian called Josephus who mentions Jesus and Christians in passing. And even for that, historians claim Christians have corrupted his words. You have zero oral traditions to rely on, so written manuscripts is all you have. So do not mislead your audience by claiming that you have sources from his lifetime or from his disciples' lifetime. You don't! Now look, ignoring this guy though, let's be fair. Nobody should expect for Christians to find the original Gospels. That's not gonna happen. That's not how history or archaeology works when we're dealing with that time. This chart is misleading, by the way. That early 125 AD manuscript is smaller than a credit card. So finding a manuscript 300 years later is not bad at all though, so what's the problem? The problem is this is supposed to be Christianity's main source of truth. So any corruption or manipulation in the text can impact truth. We already know that the Bible today has changes from this 4th century manuscript, but you have no oral tradition or chains of transmission of linking this manuscript to the original. And we also have no way of linking that original to Jesus. So the manuscript is all you have. Here, look. Here's my amazing artwork I want to share. This is by no means a 100% accurate representation, so please do not use this in your history report or anything. It's just meant to convey an idea. So you got Jesus, he teaches things to his original disciples. Christianity's 4 main gospels are attributed to disciples Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. While each gospel has a separate story, I've kind of condensed everything here, which is why this artwork won't be completely accurate. Then you got disciples teaching things to who knows, because we really have no idea. Then you have a mysterious Q manuscript, which Bible scholars say were used for 2 of the 4 gospels as sources. And while Christian tradition claims the gospel writers directly got their info from the disciples, evidence suggests otherwise, given, they wholesale copied each other, even though these are supposed to be independent eyewitness accounts. Then there's a bunch more mystery going on between them and the Codex Sinaiticus we get to see, which has differences from today's Bible. So you see this? No names, personalities, or identifications are taking place at all after the disciples. You have a few papyruses or papyri, I don't know what the plural is. You have a few of those for a few chapters found in between, but overall, the Codex Sinaiticus is basically the best thing you have to rely on. Now, here's a problem that Christianity will run into. Take this verse, for example. Wow, so beautiful, baptize them in the name of the all-star team. But what's this? The early church father Eusebius quotes this 18 times as, "Make disciples of all the nations in my name." What's going on here? Changes? Okay, which one is true? Remember the oldest manuscript? That agrees with Eusebius and not the current Bible today. There is no other church father you can point to with the current verse who says, well, I have an unbroken chain of transmission going back to the guy who wrote Matthew. Remember this?
This student studied from my sheikh, who studied from another sheikh, who studied from another sheikh, all the way back for 1,400 years.
You don't have that. We have oral tradition. We have a manuscript of the Quran that literally dates back to the Prophet's life. You don't even have an unbroken version of this. We have this! We have a robust science behind understanding and evaluating the sayings of Prophet Muhammad, the chains of transmissions, and the reliability of the individuals in the chain. We have hadith authenticity ratings based off of that. See the bottom of the pyramid? It means weak. If we put the Gospels to the test, they will fail miserably. Forget about the bottom of the pyramid. They won't even be in it.
Think about it. 40 years of sincerity, and then to suddenly come up with a monumental lie like being a prophet doesn't make any logical sense.
The claim that Muhammad never lied comes from a hadith written 200 years after he died.
Yeah, that one hadith is more reliable than your entire scripture.
The Quran itself suggests that some people did accuse Muhammad of lying about God. One translation of Surah 35:4 says, "If they call you a liar, prophet, many messengers before you were also called liars. It is to God that all things will be returned."
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
Abe, kaun si translation par raha hai tu? Oh, there it is. So he picks the one translation that suits him. Probably Control F for liar. Now, let me slowly explain to you the stupidity of your point by bringing up this verse. The main point is that Prophet Muhammad never had a reputation of lying amongst his people prior to the claim of prophethood. They saw him as an honest man, so the likelihood of him trying to fool his people would go against his established personality. Even if this seems like a weak argument to you, your response is still idiotic, because you bring a verse that talks about people rejecting his prophethood. The verse indicates nothing about what people perceived his reputation to be prior to his claim. It's like you saying that Jesus never lied, and then I say a bunch of Jews and Romans claimed he was a liar. Checkmate, Christians.
Muslims and non-Muslims turned to him for advice, and he never said no to any request. These are not qualities of someone that is mad.
First, a lot of this testimony is historically suspect, so it's not great to build your religion on it.
You know, you really haven't shown me what's so beautiful about this place. It just doesn't look that appealing. Like, look at that water. Ugh. Can anything even live there? Oh, look at this beautiful, moldy, rust-filled water leaking from my basement. Amazing!
Prophet could not read or write, had no educational background, yet was able to bring forth the Quran.
Muhammad didn't have to be able to read or write if he had heard enough Arabic poetry in his life.
Hey guys, he cracked the case. The mystery is solved. Prophet Muhammad just copied the poetic style of the local Arabs. Catholic man over here realized that, but the actual Arab poets of the time couldn't figure that out. Instead, they ended up fighting him, losing their property, their sons, and even themselves, when all they could have done was realize these revelations are just Arab poetry knockoffs. Other than Arabic poetry, where else did the Prophet Muhammad supposedly plagiarize from?
And other religious texts, including Christian ones, and then be able to recite something of his own.
Acha! Christian sources! Which ones? Your YouTube videos? The first Bible wasn't even translated into Arabic for another 200 years. Prophet Muhammad couldn't read or write, and there was no Christian following him around or in his area for him to plagiarize from, because Christianity was totally irrelevant to the Arabs. They wouldn't know who Jesus or Mary were before Islam, and we're talking about the Arabs of the Arabian Peninsula specifically, not the ones neighboring with the Byzantine Empire. If the Prophet Muhammad did somehow copy this book, how come he copied it without copying any of the scientific, historical, and philosophical errors of the Bible, when the all-powerful God of the Bible rested on the seventh day and refreshed? It's like saying, here's a car that possesses unlimited gas in the tank, but you still need to fill it up. Instead, the Prophet Muhammad supposedly used his superior knowledge on philosophy and logic and decided to say that no fatigue overtakes the all-powerful. The Quran avoids the flawed genealogy of the world that forces literalist Christians to become young earth creationists and believe the universe is only 6,000 years old. The Prophet Muhammad somehow knew that calling someone Pharaoh was not a thing during the time of Joseph, with an almost 200-year difference from the first use of the word. Joseph would have never said, "Oh, Pharaoh." That becomes a thing during the time of Moses. During the time of Joseph, the title would have been king, something the authors of the Bible didn't have a clue about. Oh, but who did know about this? Well, you guessed correct, the creator of the universe. But you can live in denial and continue pretending that when no one was looking, Prophet Muhammad would sneak into the pyramids and learn the dead language of ancient Egypt. He makes some more stupid points, but this video is already too long.
The Prophet also told many prophecies that made no sense at the time and have only recently materialized. Listen to this. He said that the poor Arabs of the deserts would compete in building tall buildings.
People have been building tall stuff for ages.
Oh my god! Oi! Ridwan! Riddu! What are you making me watch, man? Just kidding. Thanks for the suggestion, brother. Let me tell you this guy's strategy, see? Imagine you eat the absolute best biryani in the world. You post the recipe for the best dish ever. And then my man here comes to review that recipe. Rice? Lots of dishes in the world use rice. All over the world, using rice doesn't prove that a recipe is any good. So what else does the world's best dish have in its recipe? Oh, so what? Chicken is a staple dish for many different types of cuisines. I just ate KFC last night. Having chicken in your recipe doesn't mean this is the best dish in the world. Yogurt? Yogurt is the most basic ingredient of many foods around the world. The Greeks have specialized in yogurt making, even making their own variety of Greek yogurt. Putting yogurt in your food does not make your food extraordinary. So far, I haven't seen anything to make this the best tasting dish in the world, but maybe something else might change our mind. Layering? Layering is a common practice used in many dishes. The lasagna in Pizza Hut layers really well as well. In fact, there is a strong suggestion amongst intellectuals that the Mughals of India actually stole their layering techniques from the Italians. So overall, I'm not really impressed with what I see. There's no good reason to think your biryani is the best dish in the world. My food, though, oh, delicious. So keeping this in mind, let's see what he has to say.
People have been building tall stuff for ages. Muhammad probably knew about the pyramids in Egypt, and the Hagia Sophia was built decades before he was born. Even a desert watchtower could be considered a tall building. There's nothing special about guessing people will build the kinds of things they've been building forever.
Look what I have to deal with for you guys. No, brother, do it for Allah. Yeah, but, yeah, he's right. The Prophet predicted that barefoot, destitute Arabs will compete in making tall buildings. So not any Tom, Dick, or Harry from the civilizations of Egypt or the Byzantine Empire, but poor, destitute Bedouins who did not belong to a thriving civilization or an empire. Not even the Arabs from major cities of the time, but the poor Bedouin Arabs of Arabia, who had not come close to fulfilling this prophecy for 1400 years. There were no 3-story desert tower competitions taking place between them. Around 8 centuries ago, Islamic scholar Imam an-Nawawi said, "The poor people of the desert will become wealthy and begin boasting about their buildings." The only innovative ideas the Badus of the last 14 centuries could boast about was this. No offense to the Badus. But then, in the span of one generation, the tallest building in the world is now in Dubai, among a number of other huge skyscrapers, funded and built by the people who still remember the days when they were barefooted Bedouin Arabs. Actually, my Desi boys are the ones who built it under horrendous working conditions with little to no pay, while some fat, good-for-nothing pig of a kafil stole their... Brother, please, akhlaq. At one point, the clock tower in Mecca was the second tallest structure in the world, funded and constructed by the sons and grandsons of the desert-dwelling barefooted Arabs of Najd in today's Saudi Arabia. The tallest planned building in the world under construction right now is the Jeddah Tower in Saudi Arabia. Guess what? Dubai announced they will plan on building an even taller building.
Although the exact height of this tower has not yet been announced, it is expected to be taller than what Saudi Arabia is building. Therefore, some view this project as a reaction to Jeddah Tower.
Nope, nothing to see here. No fulfilled prophecies here. Desert watchtowers.
That explains everything, doesn't it?
What are your best prophecies? Oh yeah, hey guys! Page 25 of the Bible says something will happen, and then it happens on page 700! Oh, you don't like my oversimplification of Christian doctrine? Well, too bad. I had to watch hours of your misrepresentations.
He said that power and authority will be given to the wrong people. He said that sexual promiscuity would become rampant and that parents would give birth to their masters. These are only just a few examples from a plethora of authentically graded prophecies.
Like I said, anybody can make prophecies like these.
Yeah, what's with the general prophecies, man? Let's turn it up a notch so this clown can't weasel his way past them. Arabia will turn green once again. Outside of recent seeding events, notice the fact that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ mentions that the land of Arabia will return to meadows and rivers. No knowledge of the Ice Age or Arabia being green was ever known until very recently. How did he know that? The hour will not be established until people mate with each other in the road as if they were donkeys. Well, we're getting there. And don't tell me this was a normal and acceptable phenomenon throughout human history, because it wasn't. The source is YouGov, by the way. A time will surely come upon people in which none will remain but that he consumes usury. If he does not consume it, he will be afflicted by its dust. No other time in human history has the global economy been the way it is, where everyone is impacted by interest/usury. And lastly, this one you like. When the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was in the desert with his companions, struggling to survive while neighboring tribes were attacking them, he said, "Verily, you will conquer Constantinople. Oh, what a wonderful leader will her leader be. What a wonderful army that army will be." Predicted, prophesied, and fulfilled by Muhammad al-Fatih in 1453. The Prophet Muhammad predicted this while living in the backwaters of Arabia with his minuscule amount of followers at the time, that one day Muslims would conquer the biggest city in the world and the heart of Christendom.
The Prophet said,
You shall conquer Constantinople. What a wonderful leader will her leader be. And what a wonderful army will that army be. The red apple will be given to the faithful. Allahu Akbar!
Absolutely beautiful. And you know... Did anyone hear that? Where did that come from? Well, now that we've seen him poorly dismiss every logical and rational argument with an unhealthy amount of closed-minded skepticism, you may be wondering, what might actually convince him? What is his gold standard then? He doesn't like biryani, but what makes his dish so amazing? I'm dying to know!
The main evidence for Jesus' resurrection is that people who were in a good place to know if Jesus rose from the dead said that this happened.
No, hold up. Let's dig into his reasoning. Maybe we can find something on... अबे साले कितनी लंबी वीडियो बनाएगा? I mean, brother, يعني الفيديو طويل جدا. Please, maybe wait for part 2. Okay. Please like, share, and subscribe, everyone. There was much more I wanted to cover, but then we'd be on here forever.